Hello everyone, this is WizKid490 coming at you with a brief PSA of sorts. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes about net neutrality and Title II. These are terms that the media has been throwing around. They're kind of important right now, due to a variety of things. Mainly the FCC's decision to reclassify the internet under Title II. And what this means in terms of net neutrality, philosophy about the internet. Now, I'll go into further detail about these things in just a moment, but before we do that, I'd like to introduce you to what you're going to be seeing on the screen, because this is mainly a kind of thing I'm just talking. It doesn't really have much to do with the video game footage that I'm going to be showing, except that it's all multiplayer gaming. This is all online. So, because this is an internet-related topic, we have a whole bunch of online games. Some of them are more well-known than others. These are all just kind of ones I wanted to make a comment on. Because I don't think they get enough attention, or they're commonly forgotten. One of them really needs a sequel on PC. Microsoft. You'll know which one I say. You'll know which one it is. You'll know which one it is. But anyway, let's talk for just the briefest of times about net neutrality. Now, net neutrality at its core is the idea that all network traffic on a network is treated equally. No one packet gets priority over another. Now, packets, in case you don't know, are basically little bits of data that a web page or YouTube video is broken down into. All those packets then travel across the network in order to make their way to your computer, and they normally take whatever route they can find that's fastest. This sounds all very simple and reasonable so far, but the question comes in, just how much power should companies, especially private companies, have to limit or reduce the efficiency of these packets based on their contents and their destination? Now, under net neutrality, the idea is that they're all treated equally. It doesn't matter if this is a YouTube video or a website about cats. All the packets are going to have the same priority. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean they'll get to your computer quickly. If there's a lot of network traffic, they may get there pretty slow. But no other piece of network traffic is going to get there faster. This all makes sense so far, you're thinking. Well, let me share an example. Netflix and Comcast. Some time ago, Netflix did a study. They discovered that, Comcast did a study. They discovered that Netflix content accounted for nearly 30% of their network traffic. So they demanded that Netflix pay up for network upgrades. Now, the validity of these has been seriously questioned by experts as to whether they actually needed network upgrades or whether this was just basically the digital equivalent of protection money for those packets. But Netflix refused, because, hey, when your consumers are paying for unlimited internet access, the website shouldn't have to pay to make sure the stuff gets to their consumers, because the consumers have already paid for access, both access to Netflix and access to the Netflix website. The distinction there, subtle. But when this happened, Comcast identified and throttled Netflix video streams, basically pushing them all into the same internet traffic lanes. Now, this caused Netflix video streams to slow down in a big way, with a lot of issues. It caused stuttery, buffering streams, and low quality video because the connection couldn't handle high quality video. Now, after several months of this, Netflix finally gave in and paid, even though they made a stink about it, rightly so. But nobody was really able to do anything about it, because under the regulation at that time, internet connection was a commodity. They were unable to really do anything, because it's not like this is, or it's, the FCC in particular was basically unable to intervene, because under the former rules, the big ISPs had very little oversight, and they couldn't really interfere with these things. How about another example? Comcast, to this day, continues to disrupt HBO Go video streams, now called HBO Now, to PS3 and PS4 video game consoles. When asked about this, Comcast did not deny it. They simply said they were blocking the streams because of business decisions. So in other words, we've got an issue where a consumer has paid for access to a site, but their internet provider is refusing to let them access it because the site is not paying the internet provider, in addition to the consumer payments. Now, the interesting thing about this is that they didn't even deny that they were blocking the streams. Because in the case of Netflix, they've repeatedly denied that they didn't actually block or interfere with the Netflix streams. They just allowed them to degrade by putting them all down the same network paths, so to speak. But with HBO Go, they're simply saying, yeah, we're blocking them. They haven't paid up, basically. So this is something that net neutrality seeks to stop. The idea of net neutrality is that you can't block certain content because all network traffic is equal. So you can cut off all content, or you can allow all content. Now that's when the question comes up, but if a group is using so much bandwidth, why shouldn't they pay extra? Well, the main argument I have, and a lot of people have with this, is basically the physical service argument. In other words, would that be acceptable if it was a physical service? What if you paid your mailman a specific amount of money to deliver unlimited packages, and he was making a hefty profit? Well, then he starts to get quite a few more packages. Still making plenty of profit, but he realizes most of these packages are coming from the same place. The same online store. Let's say eBay for the purposes of this demonstration. So your mailman looks at this and says, hey look, eBay is sending a whole bunch of stuff. Hey eBay, give us money to buy new trucks. eBay is going to say, no. So what happens then if the mailman basically stops delivering packages from eBay? Or even if he just slows them down, lets them stew in a warehouse for some time? Naturally, this is ridiculous, absurd, and unacceptable, because he's already been paid to deliver them. It's not his responsibility what's in the packages. It's not his responsibility or any of his business who they come from. All that matters is he's got a package, he's been paid to deliver it. Same thing with the ISPs. They're being paid to deliver data to you. And now they're not doing that because they feel they want more money. Well, here's the problem. They don't deserve more money. Large ISPs like Comcast and Time Warner make about 97% profit. Meaning for every dollar they take in, it's 97 cents profit. Just let that sink in. Based on publicly available figures, they are taking 97 cents on the dollar of your money for the service they're providing. Now, I'm not talking about, oh, that's how much they make on the gross. No, that is on the net. That's after all said and done. After all the government fees and taxes, after the data costs, all that stuff, network maintenance. That is how much it costs. It costs them 3%. So the question is, why do they need more money? And the obvious answer is, they don't. They simply want to make more money. They want more profit. And they're willing to, quite frankly, screw the consumer to do it. This is where Title II comes in. Title II is a set of regulations relating to what are considered services and common carriers. Basically, Title II classification would reclassify Internet service providers under the Communications Act of 1934. This would make them a utility rather than a service. Basically what this means is they're subject to much greater scrutiny and they can't discriminate. Just like your water company or power company can't charge more for TV electricity and such. Or your water company can't charge premium for drinking water that's no different from regular water that simply goes to your sink. Now, there's a lot of confusion, though, over specifically what this will and won't do. Now, what it will do is eliminate so-called fast lanes, which ISPs have been trying to implement recently. Now, on the surface, that sounds good. Why wouldn't we want our internet to be faster? Unfortunately, it doesn't actually make our internet faster. So-called fast lanes are basically the equivalent of taking an 8-lane highway and making 2 of those lanes toll roads. You can travel on these 2 lanes where you can actually go the speed limit if you pay money, and everybody else gets transferred over to the now even more congested 6 lanes that remain. It's kind of a pay-to-play type of thing. All it will do is slow down existing services unless they pay money to the ISPs, so that's a bad thing. Title II regulation prevents this. It also prevents ISPs from throttling popular websites, including Netflix and HBO Go and YouTube. One of the widely speculated reasons that Comcast was throttling Netflix is because it also owns several television networks and sells multiple TV and on-demand video packages. So Netflix directly competes with one wing of its business. So it's in their business interests to slow Netflix down, to reduce the quality of the Netflix experience so people are more likely to buy their products. It also keeps Title II regulation also keeps ISPs from blacklisting or disconnecting popular websites, or unpopular websites, as the case may be, without legal proceedings. The hack that was perpetrated against Sony recently had a lot of negative consequences, but one positive thing is it showed private communications which indicated that companies like Sony and Comcast were in talks with the MPAA and RIAA to attempt to basically disconnect websites that they believed were pirate websites that were distributing copyrighted materials without permission. The basic idea here is that they'd simply disconnect them, pull the plug on the network switch there, so that people couldn't access them. This is after the rather spectacular failure that was the Stop Online Piracy Act, a draconian piece of legislation that proposed a shoot first, ask questions later method for taking websites down off of the internet. Now, we've seen in several cases how stuff like this has been really bad, most notably with YouTube. I myself have had quite a bit of trouble with their content ID system and copyright infringement notifications. Copyright's a good thing, but right now it's kind of messed up. I could ramble on for forever about this, but basically, how it's set up right now on YouTube is it's a shoot first, ask questions later system that allows you to simply take down content you claim belongs to you without any evidence or really any recourse for the accused, except to then try and defend themselves and try and prove that it's not. Basically, this was about to be what was implemented thanks to the Stop Online Piracy Act, or SOPA. Now, the method that SOPA provided for this was basically just for linking to a site that allegedly contained copyrighted material, your website could be removed without investigation or proof, and then you would have to fight back to try and get it reinstated. Now, obviously, this didn't go over well with the internet, and the bill was eventually removed after a massive backlash from many popular websites, including Google and Wikipedia, who criticized this shoot at first, ask questions later approach. But blocking websites straight up, disconnecting them, is absolutely unacceptable because it's even worse. The one major problem with the SOPA was that you would take stuff down and then try and fight to get it back. But with this, there isn't even an option to try and get it back. You're basically left begging the hands of ISPs and big media companies, but please connect our website again. So obviously this is very bad. Now, one of the things that Title II regulation would do is it would make this illegal, because that would be interfering. Now you can still take down websites, but you would have to go through proper legal channels, as they should be doing anyway. So now, what might it do, depending on how the legislation was implemented? Well, it might improve your connection speeds to popular sites, but only if they were or are currently being throttled by your ISP. It might offer increased competition by forcing companies to share access to infrastructure, the polls, etc. But again, that depends on the implementation of the regulation, and it might force internet prices down due to the increased oversight and the potential increased competition due to the shared infrastructure, as noted above. But here's what it's not going to do. It's not going to increase your speed as a whole, your internet speed, because your internet speed hasn't just suddenly gotten faster. All you've done is prevented the ISPs from making it slower. It won't get rid of your data bandwidth cap, unfortunately, which means that if you have a plan that forces you to pay more after you exceed a certain amount of data, which is ridiculous in 2015, seriously, but there are some companies, Comcast, who are still doing this. Sadly, you are going to still have to keep paying if you exceed that amount. But it will not prevent your ISP from throttling your internet connection as a whole either. They can't throttle specific websites, but they can throttle your internet connection as a whole. They can reduce your connection speed on all websites, still beyond a certain amount of data usage. So now here's the good news. The internet has already spoken, and the FCC has listened. 97%, second time that number's come up today, of all the comments the FCC received during its public comment period supported strong net neutrality. And so, several weeks ago now, I can't believe it, but probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't have the date right in front of me, the FCC voted 3-2 to pass Title II type legislation. Now, they've attempted to remove some of the more restrictive elements that come with a 1930s utility regulation and make sure that we can still have competition, have increased competition instead of stifling it due to fees and taxes. But they have passed it, so it looks like this is a thing. Unfortunately, the government is trying to intervene, or more specifically, puppet senators. Gosh, I cannot believe I'm saying that. That sounds like a complete and utter oxymoron, but sadly it appears to be true. So the Information Freedom Act, I'm sorry, I can't say that. The Internet Freedom Act, I can't say either of those, I'm sorry, without cracking up, because George Orwell would be proud of the doublespeak here. That the Internet Freedom Act would basically do one thing and one thing only: remove the internet from the FCC. It would basically say that the FCC no longer has the ability to dictate anything about the internet without passing it through Congress first, after invalidating the recent FCC ruling. Now, this is very bad. Needless to say, I would recommend you write your congressman, your senator, tell them to stop this. Thankfully, where I live, most of the representatives are pro-consumer. Fortunately, not all of them. Now, so this is kind of a plea. Please, write your congressman, shoot him an email. It literally only takes a few minutes. I'll also be linking in the description and at the end of the video a site that can help. They'll help you call your congressman as well, or shoot him an email. Really simple form letter, just enter your information and it'll send it away. It'll also send you some email updates, which, I mean, they do occasionally ask for money, but it's not too bad. They're pretty good about sending email pretty rarely. So, yeah. The FCC has ruled in what I believe is very much a pro-consumer move, which is good, because it did not look like the FCC was going to for a while. But now that move is under attack from congressmen who are arguing that it would be better to put control of the internet back in the hands of big companies, big corporations who have already demonstrated that they cannot be trusted. And that's where the biggest argument comes in. People say that Title II will destroy the internet. There are a lot of people saying that. People have ads up about it, about how it's destroying the internet, and how it's going to wipe out competition and restrict growth. But the fact is, historically, these aren't true. Because the big ISPs were once under Title II. The internet was once under Title II, back in the early 2000s. Again, I don't have the exact date. It'll be in one of the videos I linked. It'll be in the Title II video I'll link in the description. But the internet was under Title II for a long time. It actually thrived. Seriously, it really did. It was one of the best periods of internet development. There was a massive amount of new infrastructure being developed. Another argument I've heard is that what we're going to do is we're going to get a regulated monopoly when we come out of this. Because these rules were designed to basically create a regulated monopoly. And it would be a bad idea to apply that to a, and I quote, thriving marketplace. Yeah, I think that last line tells you all you need to know about that argument. It is not a thriving marketplace. There is almost no competition. Everything is regional monopolies. Very few Americans have a choice when it comes to that matter, and we are trailing the rest of the world when it comes to internet technology. Because our internet speeds are exponentially below the rest of the world. In nearly every major city in Europe, and some in Southeast Asia, you can get what's called gigabit internet. Now, gigabit internet is so called because it can transfer 1,000 bits per second. I'm sorry, 1,000 million gigabits. Let me reboot. Now, it's called gigabit internet because it can transfer a total of 1 billion bits per second. Now, that number you see on your internet subscription, that's in megabits per second, or millions of bits per second. The average US broadband speed is 10 megabits per second. So let me rephrase that. Most of the countries in Europe have, at a price that is lower than the average price we pay here in the US, they have internet that is 100 times faster. And yet, there are companies like, I believe it was Time Warner. I don't quote me on this, but I believe it was Time Warner, who said, when asked by a governor to come up with a plan for, I guess it was a mayor probably, to come up with a plan to build a citywide gigabit network, they came back and said, well, we don't think people really want faster speeds. That's right, folks. They said it. These companies have delayed the change to fiber for years, because that would mean development costs, and they don't want to pay for new development. But the thing is, the time is over. We need to upgrade. We have fallen behind. And this is what happens when you leave the fate of an industry in the hands of people like the big ISPs, the big corporations. Yes, government regulation will result in a regulated monopoly. But that's still a lot better than an unregulated one. We've seen how bad it is under these big companies And quite frankly, I don't think it can get much worse with some government regulation. I think regulation at this point is exactly what we need. Alright folks, so thank you for listening. If you made it this far in the video, this was really supposed to be just a 10-minute video, but there's so much to be said on this topic. I'll be linking some great resources in the description, a quick video about the introduction to net neutrality, a quick video about, a not so quick video about Title II, and an excellent website that will help you send messages to your Congress people about this new law they're trying to pass that would basically deregulate the internet once again. Yeah, so that is about it. Thank you guys for watching. It's been a long video. I'll try to keep my next one a little shorter. But thank you, and have a nice day, or night, whatever time it is right now. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.